Beneath the tranquil waters of the Yucatan lies a dangerous truth that has crippled Mexico's growth for decades. Now, the government is ripping millions of cubic feet of seabed from the Gulf in a megaproject so massive it's almost unimaginable. Satellites are tracking it. Locals are stunned. Engineers are working around the clock because what's buried under that calm blue surface isn't just sand. It's Mexico's future. But why gamble everything on a plan this extreme? Why take a risk that could either change the nation forever or backfire catastrophically? The answer is more shocking than anyone expected, and it's already sending waves through global politics. Wait until you see what they're really building and why it had to happen now. The Yucatan's hidden weakness. The Yucatan Peninsula is a land of striking contrasts. At first glance, it is a paradise of white sand beaches, lush jungles, and turquoise waters. Tourists see a region that feels timeless. But beneath this beauty lies a story that stretches back millions of years, and a challenge that continues to shape its present. The land itself bears the scar of one of the most violent events in Earth's history. Roughly 66 million years ago, a 6-mile-wide asteroid struck with unimaginable force, leaving behind what is now known as the Chicxulub crater. Scientists identify this impact as the single event that triggered the extinction of the dinosaurs. The collision forever altered the planet, paving the way for mammals, and eventually humans, to rise to dominance. This history gives the Yucatan a unique place in scientific and natural heritage, a reminder that even paradise can be born from destruction. Today, the Yucatan is celebrated for reasons very different from its prehistoric past. Its coastlines are famous for their soft white sand, its forests are alive with species found nowhere else, and its cenotes, limestone sinkholes that open into vast underground rivers, are regarded as some of the most beautiful natural features in the world. Clear waters that seem almost unreal draw travelers from every corner of the globe, and the peninsula has become one of Mexico's leading tourist destinations. On the surface, it appears to be thriving. Yet beauty has not erased the region's underlying weakness. For decades, the Yucatan has been left behind in the race to expand global trade. Its ports are shallow and limited, unable to handle the enormous container ships that now dominate international commerce. Roads and transport networks exist, but they lack the scale and connectivity that link Mexico's Pacific and Gulf coasts to the wider world. This has created a paradox. The Yucatan sits at one of the most strategic crossroads on the global map, directly connecting North America, Europe, and the Caribbean, but it does not have the infrastructure to take advantage of its location. Other parts of Mexico have surged ahead. Ports like Veracruz, Manzanillo, and Lázaro Cárdenas have grown into global hubs, attracting the largest vessels and feeding vast industrial centers inland. The Yucatan, by contrast, has remained a gap in Mexico's economic chain, offering natural beauty but little ability to compete in trade. Factories have not clustered here at the same scale, and investors have long favored regions where goods can move efficiently. That long-standing weakness is finally being confronted. In 2025, Mexico launched a bold initiative to reshape the coastline and prepare new infrastructure aimed at pulling the Yucatan into the center of global commerce. The groundwork now being laid is not just about construction, but about rewriting the peninsula's role in the national economy. This effort comes at a critical moment. Mexico's trade with the United States has reached unprecedented levels, placing new demands on shipping routes and port capacity. The Yucatan's inability to handle that growth is no longer just a local inconvenience. It is a national problem that must be solved. The trade numbers forcing Mexico to dig deep. Trade between Mexico and the United States has reached a level that would have seemed almost unthinkable a generation ago. By 2024, their exchanges had exceeded $800 billion, making Mexico the #1 trading partner of the United States for the second year in a row. This was not simply a number on a chart. It was proof of how tightly the two economies had become intertwined, each leaning on the other for growth. Exports from Mexico to the United States continued to climb, rising 6% year over year. What exactly crossed the border? A wide mix of goods. Factories in Mexico shipped out cars and the parts that build them, sleek electronics, fresh produce, petroleum, and a growing list of manufactured products that showed increasing sophistication. The trade was not one-sided either. Imports from the United States also moved steadily south, fueling dense supply chains that connect industries on both sides of the border. Much of this movement does not happen on highways, but on the water. Ocean freight carries the bulk of it, and the ships involved are giants in every sense of the word. Modern shipping is dominated by massive post-Panamax container vessels. These ships reach lengths of over 900 feet long, which is nearly the size of 3 football fields lined up together. A single ship of this class can hold 14,520 standard containers, each one packed with goods destined for factories, warehouses, and stores. The industry has already gone even further. The newest vessels can hold more than 24,000 containers, pushing efficiency to heights few imagined possible. But that kind of size comes with a condition. These enormous ships cannot dock just anywhere. They require harbors that are both deep and wide, supported by advanced technology to guide them in and out safely. Out of all of Mexico's coastline, only 6 ports currently have what it takes to welcome vessels of that scale. Here is where the puzzle begins. The Yucatán Peninsula, with its prime location connecting the United States, the Caribbean, and even Europe, has no such port. It sits on the map like a perfect crossroads, but lacks the infrastructure needed to receive the very ships that drive today's global trade. That absence is more than an inconvenience. It is a bottleneck, one that risks slowing the flow of goods at a time when demand is soaring. The trade boom makes it clear that Mexico needs ports capable of handling modern shipping demands. Yet in the Yucatán, the main structure built to serve that purpose, the Progreso Pier, now shows critical weaknesses that are slowing progress. Progreso Pier and its hidden weakness. The pier at Progreso does not just stretch into the Gulf of Mexico, it reaches into history, into ambition, and now into a problem too large to ignore. Almost 4 miles long, it is the longest pier on the planet. When construction began in the late 1930s, the vision was bold. Engineers wanted to solve a stubborn problem. The shallow coastal waters of the Yucatán made it nearly impossible for large ships to dock. By building a pier that extended so far out, they created access to deeper waters where vessels could finally anchor. By the 1980s, as global trade accelerated, the pier was extended even further to keep up with rising demand. It stood as proof that human effort could outmatch geography, at least for a time. But can even the most ambitious construction keep pace with the ships of today? That question sits at the heart of Progreso's current struggle. The pier itself is massive, but the water surrounding it tells another story. The fairway depth is only 40 feet, and the channel is barely 492 feet across. Those numbers might have worked decades ago, but in an age dominated by post-Panamax vessels, they fall short. To understand the scale of the problem, consider this. Modern cargo ships are larger than the original locks of the Panama Canal. Many of them require much deeper and wider passages just to move safely. Progresso's channel cannot handle a vessel with a draft greater than 32 feet without risk. That makes it almost impossible for the port to welcome the newest generation of ships that drive international commerce. The consequences ripple far beyond the water's edge. When these larger vessels cannot dock at Progresso, they divert elsewhere, most often to Veracruz. And Veracruz is not just a short detour, it lies far to the south. From there, containers must be hauled back toward the Yucatán by truck or barge. What does that add up to? Extra hours, between 12 and 18 in many cases, and with them extra costs. Thousands of dollars per container vanish into these delays. In global shipping, where timing and cost decide who wins and who loses, that is not a small problem. So every extra mile traveled, every added day in transit, chips away at Yucatan's competitiveness. Businesses in the region are forced to pay more, and those costs trickle down to consumers who may never even know why prices feel just a little higher. The pier may be long, but the economic reach of its limitations stretches even farther. Progresso's inability to handle the largest vessels has redirected opportunities away from the peninsula, leaving it on the margins of Mexico's maritime economy. For Mexico, that reality is no longer acceptable. The weakness of Progresso has become the driving force behind a far bigger gamble. An unprecedented project to reshape the very seabed of the Gulf and give the Yucatán a port system capable of competing on a global scale. Mexico's bold plan beneath the Gulf. What Mexico is attempting off the coast of the Yucatán is as ambitious as it is unprecedented. For decades, the peninsula's shallow waters have acted like a wall, preventing it from joining the ranks of major global shipping hubs. That limitation is finally being confronted head-on with one of the largest dredging projects in the country's history. At its core, the plan is deceptively simple. Remove soil from the seafloor until the channels are deep and wide enough to handle the biggest container ships in the world. In practice, however, it is an engineering feat that almost defies imagination. The scale alone is staggering. Engineers estimate that more than 353 million cubic feet of sediment must be removed to give Progresso a new life. That number is hard to picture, but it equals thousands of Olympic swimming pools filled with sand and clay. To achieve this, powerful dredging vessels operate day and night, pulling material straight from the seabed and depositing it at designated sites. Each pass of the equipment brings the port closer to being able to accommodate ships nearly 3 football fields long, carrying more than 20,000 containers each. Execution of the project has been entrusted to Mexicana Dragados, a subsidiary of the Belgian group Jan de Nul, one of the world's leaders in complex dredging operations. Their selection signaled more than just technical expertise. It was a statement of intent. Mexico was willing to bring in global heavyweights to ensure the Yucatán would finally break free from its maritime constraints. In 2025, the company officially took control, and by August, the full-scale operation was underway. At sea, the sight is extraordinary. Trailing suction hopper dredgers move like giant vacuums, sucking up sand and silt from the seafloor and storing it in massive tanks before transporting it away. When the soil proves tougher, dense clay or compacted layers that resist removal, cutter suction dredgers step in. Their rotating heads chew through the hardened ground, mixing it with water to form a slurry that is then pumped through floating pipelines to shore. The process continues in relentless cycles, balancing precision with sheer force. What makes the task even more challenging is that Progresso has remained open for shipping during construction. Crews must not only deepen and widen the channel, but also ensure that existing trade continues without disruption. Timing, logistics, and safety are constantly in tension, with each misstep risking delays that could ripple through Mexico's entire supply chain. The ambition behind this project cannot be overstated. It is not just about digging a deeper channel. It is about rewriting the Yucatan's role in global commerce. By reshaping geography itself, Mexico is betting that a region long sidelined by shallow seas will finally step forward as a competitive player in international trade. Whether this gamble succeeds will determine if Progreso becomes a symbol of progress or an unfinished dream buried beneath the Gulf. But how much resources would it cost to achieve this great dream? Progreso's race against time. $400 million. That is the figure Mexico has put on the table to change the future of the port of Progreso. It is a huge sum, but in the world of modern trade infrastructure, it is also a gamble. Money alone does not guarantee success. What really matters is whether the investment delivers results on time. In this case, the finish line is not far away. The expansion is set to be completed in 2027, which is barely 2 years after work officially began. That deadline is ambitious by any standard. Large infrastructure projects often stretch far longer than their original schedules. Delays are so common that they are almost expected. Weather, supply chain issues, and political changes can all throw even the best planned timelines off track. When you add in the technical challenge of dredging hundreds of millions of cubic feet of soil and keeping the port open at the same time, it is easy to see why some experts wonder if Progreso can really hit the target. History offers plenty of cautionary tales. Around the world, major port expansions and coastal projects have started with high hopes only to stall out. The Sri Lankan Hambantota port, launched in the early 2000s, was billed as a future trade hub, but quickly became a financial burden that took years to stabilize. In Brazil, the Achu superport faced repeated delays and funding challenges before it began to deliver on its promises. Even Mexico has seen its own share of stalled megaprojects, where shifting political winds or budget shortfalls forced plans to be scaled back. So what makes Progreso different? Why should anyone believe this project will succeed where others have stumbled? The first answer lies in the urgency. Trade between Mexico and the United States has already surged past $800 billion a year, and that growth is not slowing down. Progreso sits at a crossroads where demand is obvious, and the cost of doing nothing would be steep. Every day that larger ships are forced to dock elsewhere, the Yucatan loses business, and investors know it. The second reason is the alignment of support. Unlike many failed projects that leaned too heavily on either government or private money, Progreso's expansion brings together federal funding, state backing, and private investment. That shared commitment reduces the risk that one group walks away and leaves the others holding the bill. Finally, there is the technology. Dredging today is not what it was decades ago. With advanced equipment and specialized firms like Jan de Nul taking charge, the odds of hitting depth and width targets on schedule are higher than ever before. Will there be setbacks? Almost certainly. But everything about Progreso's current push suggests that this project is not just another ambitious promise. It is a necessary step for Mexico's economy, and that necessity is exactly what gives it momentum. The stakes are high, but for once, all signs point to a finish line that will be crossed. But there are still other problems ahead. The hidden cost of Mexico's megaproject. What does it take to modernize a coastline without erasing the life it holds? That is the question facing Mexico's dredging project. Every act of dredging comes with unavoidable risks. The process unsettles the seafloor. It kicks up layers of sediment that turn once clear waters murky. When that happens, fragile marine life can suffocate, and the habitats that sustain fish, turtles, and countless smaller species are disturbed. Authorities knew these dangers were real, which is why the entire project has been tied to a strict environmental impact plan. It is not simply a set of suggestions, but a legally binding system of rules meant to keep harm as low as possible. One of the most important safeguards is the use of sediment barriers. These structures are designed to reduce water clouding. They also keep suspended particles from spreading into areas where aquatic life could be choked out. But technology alone is not enough. Timing matters too. Authorities have made it clear that work must stop during critical spawning periods. Fish migrations and turtle nesting seasons are written directly into the schedule, ensuring that natural cycles are given space to continue. The vessel leading the operation, the Fernando de Magallanes, has also been fitted with advanced systems. Unlike older dredgers that tore through seabeds, this ship uses equipment designed to minimize disruption while still moving vast amounts of sediment efficiently. On land, efforts extend beyond the water's edge. A large mangrove replanting program is underway to replace coastal vegetation lost to erosion and past development. Mangroves do more than hold soil together. They shield shorelines from storms, store carbon, and provide natural nurseries for fish and birds. Oversight is another key part of the plan. Independent audits are carried out on a regular basis. In addition, a new eco-laboratory inside a local university tracks conditions in real time. There, scientists monitor water turbidity, acidity, and pollutant levels. If any number rises above safe thresholds, adjustments can be made immediately. Still, questions remain. Local environmental groups have demanded even more thorough studies, particularly on fish stocks and algae beds that form the base of the marine food chain. In response, officials have promised to adapt dredging methods if new problems emerge. It is an ongoing balance between building for the future and preserving what is already there. But dredging alone won't fix the problem. It's only part of a much bigger effort. Mexico isn't just deepening the water so big ships can dock. It's trying to connect everything: the port, the roads, and the trains. That's where the real opportunity lies. Right now, the government is building rail lines that will link Progreso to the rest of the Yucatán and beyond. And this is where the next chapter begins: the rail lines that could decide Progreso's future. Linking rail to sea. Imagine a ship docking in Progreso and its cargo rolling out by train within hours. That is the vision taking shape right now. A railway built through ancient lands is now being reshaped to power modern trade, and the results could change Mexico's economy in ways few imagined. Stretching close to 1,000 miles, the Tren Maya winds across 5 states, which includes Yucatán, Quintana Roo, Campeche, Tabasco, and Chiapas. With 34 stations along its route, it was first introduced as a passenger and freight railway, designed to carry both people and goods through the southeast. Its scale alone is striking, with the ability to move around 25 million travelers each year. But its role is quickly expanding beyond passenger service. The turning point came when plans were announced to extend the railway toward the port of Progreso. By adding a new freight line, the Tren Maya would no longer just link towns and cities. It would serve as a direct bridge between the Gulf of Mexico and the nation's southern markets. Engineers from the military are already at work on the Progreso multimodal cargo terminal, an ambitious facility designed to support this vision. Why does this matter? Because it means ships docking at Progreso could transfer containers straight onto rail cars. No more long waits for unloading, and no more dependence on slow trucking routes that clog highways and drive up costs. Instead, cargo could leave the port within hours, traveling quickly towards central Mexico and even reaching the southern United States with far less delay. Reports suggest that transport times could be cut by nearly half. While the Tren Maya has often been highlighted for cultural and environmental reasons, it is becoming clear that its economic role may prove just as significant. For Yucatán, geography is no longer a barrier. With rail and port moving as one, the region is positioning itself as a key player in both national and international trade. Why pulling soil from the Gulf is a game-changer for Yucatán. Digging up and moving millions of tons of seabed soil from the Gulf of Mexico might not sound exciting, but for Yucatán's future, it's one of the smartest decisions Mexico is making right now. Let's start with the obvious. You can't build a bigger port on weak, shallow ground. The port of Progreso is currently limited by its natural depth, which restricts the size of ships that can safely dock. By dredging and removing soil from the seafloor, engineers are quite literally carving out space for massive cargo vessels, the kind that power today's global economy. Without this, the port remains stuck in the past. But here's where it gets really interesting. All that removed soil isn't being wasted. It's being strategically relocated to build new land platforms, extending the coastline and creating strong, elevated areas for construction. These platforms will support new terminals, industrial zones, logistics hubs, and storage centers, all on solid, engineered ground. You're not just deepening the sea, you're creating entirely new terrain for economic expansion. This method also saves time and money. Instead of hauling construction materials from far inland, they're repurposing what they already have on site: seabed sediment. That's a massive cost saver, and it keeps the project moving faster toward completion. And then there's the technical side. This soil extraction allows engineers to custom design the port layout. They're not working around natural limitations. They're designing the most efficient flow of cargo, traffic, and access points from the ground up. Trucks won't need to weave through awkward, outdated layouts. Cranes and rail lines can be installed exactly where they're most useful. This level of precision is what makes the difference between a decent port and a world-class one. The ripple effect? As soon as these platforms are ready, businesses will be able to move in and set up shop without delay. In short, this soil isn't just dirt, it's the raw material for a whole new economy. And by pulling it from the Gulf and using it smartly, Yucatán isn't just reshaping its coastline, it's reshaping its future. Mexico's gateway to global shipping. Imagine a port where cargo moves without delays, where Yucatán's economy is no longer held back by shallow waters and detours through Veracruz or Altamira. That's what Progreso is becoming, not years from now, but right now. And the transformation is already drawing serious attention from investors, manufacturers, and global shippers. At the heart of this shift is one major change: depth. The Gulf of Mexico's natural constraints have long limited Progreso's potential. But with the expansion deepening the access channel and upgrading infrastructure, Progreso will soon handle twice the volume of cargo it could before. That means larger vessels, fewer transshipment stops, and direct connections to Europe and the eastern United States, something that's never been possible from this port. This isn't just a technical win, it's a logistical breakthrough. Producers in Yucatán, from tropical fruit growers to high-tech manufacturers, will gain something they've never had: speed, and certainty. Exports that used to crawl through overland detours or bottlenecked docks will now move efficiently, cutting weeks off delivery times. That changes everything. Businesses that once had to price in delay penalties or spoilage risks can now compete globally on fair terms. Importers will benefit too. Stable arrival schedules mean lower costs, tighter inventories, and fewer unexpected expenses. In a world where supply chain predictability is as valuable as price, this reliability turns Progreso into a strategic node, not just a Mexican port. And logistics companies? They're already preparing. Instead of wasting resources managing delays, they're now designing leaner, smarter distribution systems. That means better tracking tech, optimized delivery routes, and streamlined services, all of which ripple out into the regional economy. The impact doesn't end at the docks. This port expansion is triggering an industrial migration. Land near the terminal is under review for new facilities, agro-processing plants, automotive assembly lines, and packaging centers. These companies want to be close to the action. They see the advantage of operating within minutes of a deep-water international port. Each container that enters or exits fuels a local economy. Skilled crane operators, dock workers, truck drivers, customs agents, safety inspectors. But behind them come the white-collar jobs such as environmental analysts, freight planners, software engineers, and behind them come everyday benefits. More jobs, higher wages, and new opportunities for small businesses inland. According to recent estimates, Progreso could double its trade volume within 5 years. That would make it one of the fastest-growing ports in the Western Hemisphere. More importantly, it positions Mexico as a global logistics powerhouse, not just a regional supplier. Progreso is no longer just a fishing town with a cruise terminal. It's becoming Mexico's Atlantic engine, a launchpad for trade and industry across continents. If the momentum continues, and all signs say it will, this port won't just support Yucatan's future. It will define it.